Welcome back to Mr. Shadow YouTube channel. Today, I will tell you about 5 chilling true horror stories. Compilation Story 1. The Shadow Man. It was a sleepless night for Alice, a college student pulling an all-nighter to finish her thesis. She was alone in her dimly lit dorm room, the glow from her laptop the only source of light. As she typed, she began to feel a strange chill in the air, and something urged her to glance toward the window. That's when she saw a theater dark figure standing in the shadows outside, motionless, with an indistinct shape. The figure didn't belong to anyone she recognized. Alice blinked and it was gone. She shrugged it off as her imagination playing tricks. But when she turned back to her work, she felt an icy breath on her neck. Heart racing, she looked over her shoulder again. This time, the figure was standing just outside her door, staring at her with unblinking eyes. Too terrified to move or scream, she locked her gaze onto the door, waiting for whatever was out there to come in. Moments felt like hours before she finally mustered enough courage to bolt for the hall and seek help. When she returned with a resident advisor, they found nothing. The door was still locked, and there were no signs of forced entry. Alice later learned that, years ago, a student in her dorm had mysteriously vanished, and rumors of a shadowy figure lingered ever since. Story 2. The haunting of apartment 3B. Mark and Sarah were excited to move into their new apartment. It was affordable and located in a seemingly friendly neighborhood. However, they quickly began hearing strange noises, thumping sounds at odd hours, and whispers in the dark. They dismissed these as typical settling noises until one night when Mark awoke to find Sarah sleepwalking, mumbling incoherently. Concerned, he gently led her back to bed. But that night, he also started seeing fleeting shadows out of the corner of his eye, and felt a cold presence watching him. One morning, Mark discovered a wide, grotesque handprint on the bathroom mirror, completely out of place from their own hands. Deciding enough was enough, they began to investigate the apartment's history. To their horror, they learned that the previous tenant had a history of mental illness and had tragically died in the very bathroom where the handprint appeared. They left the apartment immediately, but the lingering whispers followed them. Till today, they can still hear the gentle calls of a voice that seems to echo through their dreams at night. Story 3. The Eyes in the Woods. Growing up in a small town near dense woods, Ethan was warned never to wander into the forest after dark. One fateful evening, curiosity got the best of him, and he set off with his flashlight. As he ventured deeper, the light flickered ominously, and an unsettling silence enveloped the forest. Suddenly he heard rustling nearby. Turning, he spotted a pair of glowing eyes peering at him from behind a tree. Frozen with fear, he blinked, and the eyes were gone. But as he moved deeper into the woods, the feeling of being watched intensified, and the eyes reappeared, now closer. At this point, a primal fear kicked in, and he sprinted back towards home. But the eyes followed him, always staying just out of sight, but relentless. He stumbled and fell, and as he scrambled to his feet, he felt a cold breath against his neck. He never looked back, sprinting until he reached his house, panting and terrified. To this day, he avoids the woods, often wondering what might have happened had he not escaped. Story 4. The Cursed Doll. While cleaning the attic, Anna stumbled upon an old dusty doll that belonged to her grandmother. It was made of porcelain, its smile unsettling, and its eyes seemed to follow her every movement. She decided to keep it, thinking it was a piece of family history. Soon after bringing the doll downstairs, strange events began. Objects would go missing, noises erupted throughout the house, and Jenna experienced vivid nightmares about a little girl crying for help. One weekend, she invited her friends over, and they took turns making fun of the doll until light flickered and the air turned icy. A sharp knock echoed and one friend screamed. It felt as if the doll had moved, shifting its position slightly on the shelf. That night, Jenna awoke to the smell of something burning. Running downstairs, she found the doll on fire despite being far from any source of flame. Panicking, she threw it outside into the rain, but even then, it wouldn't extinguish. The next morning, all that remained was a charred stump, but on the floor beside it laid a small porcelain hand. Jenna moved away soon after, leaving behind the darkness that had crept into her home. Story 5. The midnight caller. Jessica was working the late shift at a convenience store. It was a quiet night, and the only thing keeping her company was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Around midnight, the bell above the door jingled, signaling a customer. She looked up to find a scruffy man standing there, eyes darting nervously. As he approached the counter, he began to mumble incoherently, looking more and more agitated. Jessica handed him his purchase, but something felt off. The man leaned in closer, whispering something about a warning before he hurried out the door. Moments later, the store phone rang. When she picked it up, a distorted voice told her to look behind her. Heart pounding, she slowly turned to find no one there. Shaking, she thought of the man who had just left. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. This time it was the police. They informed her that a vicious crime had just occurred a few blocks away, and the man had been identified as a suspect. They advised her to lock the doors and stay inside until they arrived. Chilled to the bone, Jessica obeyed, looking out for the man through the store's windows. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually, the police arrived just in time. They apprehended the man hiding in the bushes outside. She later learned that he had escaped a mental institution, claiming voices commanded him to hurt others. Jessica would never forget the feeling of being watched that night, never truly safe, even within the walls of her workplace. Conclusion: these 5 stories remind us that the true horrors are often rooted in the unexplained and the remnants of darkness that linger far beyond their origins. Stay aware, for sometimes the shadows have more than just stories to tell. Thank you for watching.